Oh my good friend, let's start something, then throw it all out to the wind.
Welcome to episode 4 of Ryan Rambles. This is the podcast show I've chosen to kind of go into greater detail about some of the goings-on of Ryan Runs. So this week, it's going to take the form of a question. And that question is, why Patreon? Now, this is kind of a part of a greater reorganization or update to the Patreon and to the channel in general. I know I've been talking up phase 2 for some time now. There's a Ryan Rambles of that out there as well. But in getting the Patreon up to snuff, it's kind of turned into, at the very least, a 3-pronged approach. And one of those is the video. I feel like I've talked about the most. I am going to redo that introduction video. So that's probably going to be the thing that people interface with the most. But that does also include on the same page a written portion that gets a little bit more heady. So if that's more your speed, then hang around for this, because last week, so I knew there was an Aquabats show coming up. I usually do. And I hadn't decided if I was going to go to it yet. So I waited all the way until the day before and was like, yeah, I need to go. I don't think I knew exactly why until I started to go. But in the trip down there, some thoughts started to congeal. And they're thoughts I've been having for a bit. I've got scattered notes on Google Drive and on the Notes app on my phone. And on the way to the Aquabats concert, I pulled over, and not only was I able to get those combined in a fairly coherent manner, but the rest of it kind of poured out of me. And that's this episode that you're listening to right now. So if it sounds like I'm reading here and there, I am going off of some heavily detailed notes for whatever reason. Usually my notes are more bullet points and the show just kind of goes from there. So stick with me. But also logistically, if this is going to be something that I push in that introductory video or in the body of the written portion of Patreon, it needs to exist first. So we're going to do this now. Let's say in part, when it comes to why Patreon, I don't want to play the YouTube game. And this isn't necessarily all YouTube. Let's just say I have a checkered past with the idea of convincing people to like my stuff, like the things that I put out. The wrong way to do that is where it's just hard to sell myself at all. And we could probably go a lot deeper with that. That's probably a whole other podcast episode. But I'll say I've had an aversion to advertising that has needed some refinement at the very least, but also this idea that I might produce something that other people might agree is worth producing, even if that worth is in dollars. The idea that that's okay is something that hasn't necessarily come naturally to me. And I think part of my reluctance is that I always feel like I've been painfully aware of the privilege at play, right? And this is not anything new. I feel like maybe it's a little bit more amplified the farther back you go, but everybody has their thing. Everybody has a dream. Let's call it what it is, because there are people that chase it. I think there's people that agonize over chasing it, sometimes one and the same there. And then there's the people that just view it as something so terribly indulgent. And they're not completely wrong either. It's complete madness. And again, I feel like even calling it chasing your dream or whatever is bringing some baggage with it. But let's call it what it is. And let's admit that there's a little bit of, all of the terms seem inappropriate, but self-centeredness that goes along with it. I mean, there has to be some part of you that thinks you're worth it. And obviously I'm talking about self-worth rather than self-centeredness, but from the outside looking in, I think it's hard to distinguish sometimes. And I'm getting ahead of myself, honestly, here, but I just want up front everybody to know that I am aware of the privilege at play. I'm aware of my own privileged position. I talk about my video client work a lot, but honestly, I would not be here and able to do this in the middle of the day even if it weren't for the fact that I manage the apartments where we live on nights and weekends. So I get that, and I'm going to come back to it for sure. But when I say I don't want to play the YouTube game, so I've been listening to a lot of YouTube creators recently, other YouTube creators, especially since I have not recently, but certainly within the last year or so, discovered that that's me. I'm one of those. I am a YouTube creator. So I've been listening to some other prominent ones, and many of them talk a lot about maximizing their reach, right? By doing things like redesigning their thumbnails for their videos, or using clickbaity titles, or even just, flirting with clickbait. Just trying to ride that algorithm like a wave. And that's fantastic. Obviously, some of them have done this to great success, and I am happy for them. And I want my thumbnails to look good too. I've gone back and redesigned a few myself. And everybody knows I love coming up with titles for things. If you look at my YouTube page, you might think that I only like coming up with titles for things, given all of the things that I've titled on there. But here's the wave that I am trying to ride. A comfy group of like-minded patrons that agree about putting something positive into the world. Now, I get that there's at least two criticisms to that statement. First of which being, well, that's kind of vague. And the second being, Ryan, you make unboxing videos and talk a lot about really old video games for some reason. And honestly, those two criticisms, fair, you got me. But this might be where we start talking about entertainment. So I've been going to PAX, Penny Arcade Expo, since I think 2010. If not, then it was 2011. And in that time, there have been a few autograph booths that they've set up over the course of the years. And honestly, with something like that, I usually just go, I shake their hands and say thank you, and then take off. And that's been fine and fun. I very rarely get something signed. In fact, those few exceptions are pretty much hanging on my wall at this very moment. But there was one year where they had done this for Ellen McLain, who you would obviously probably know from the Portal series. She's the voice of GLaDOS. She's done a lot of other things, but that is what she's most popular for. And John Patrick Lowry, who is her husband, but also has darn near 30 credits to his name just in the video games arena, where he might be most popularly known for playing the sniper on Team Fortress 2. So they were doing a signing, and we waited in line, got to the front, and this is the other thing that happens in these situations is I almost every single time forget about what I ask or say to them, probably because I've been thinking about it so much up until that moment, but I cannot remember what I said to them beyond thank you, and that they were a type of inspiration for what I was doing in the podcasts and content that I was releasing at the time. And in response, I also don't remember what exactly they said, because in the middle of their response, they started talking about entertaining and being an entertainer. And it hit me at that moment that they were including me in that. So basically at the moment I had that realization that, oh, I'm an entertainer. What I'm doing is entertaining, which sounds stupid. I get it, but this is just stick with me still. From then on out, with kind of that new point of view, I started noticing how thankless being an entertainer can be. In fact, I would even say demonized at times. And I know this is a complete can of worms. I'm not saying that all entertainment is created equal. This might also be a real boohoo moment for some of you out there, Cry Me a River, especially if you see those top tier entertainers out there just making their millions. Not me, by the way. But also, I think it's just so easy to just watch your shows, right? To just listen to your stories. And they can be your stories. I want to be careful to say that I'm not trying to take that away or lessen that. In fact, the best stories engage you in a way that can literally, I am not exaggerating, change your life, cause introspection, maybe make you want to be a better person, or, this is the real kicker, inspire you to create something yourself, right? Leave your own mark on the world. That's what good media can do, for lack of a better term, content for even more lack of a better term, but also entertainment, right? They're all such dismissive words, like right off the bat, for something that has the possibility to do all of those things that I just mentioned. So that's why I say that it's just super easy to watch your shows, because everybody at some point, possibly daily even, just turns something on to relax, right? To kind of tune out. Or I've been informed that there are people that watch things without talking about them on the internet, it turns out. I do too. I definitely have. In fact, some of them are the same exact things that we turn to over and over, because that's what we need to escape. I'm not trying to lessen that either. In fact, I would say entertainment and escapism are often just two sides of the same coin, right? But because of that, like almost built into the word, I think it's just so easy to forget about it after, which isn't hard to understand, but it's still contradictory, I think, if you think about it. Because how is the ability to escape also not incredibly valuable to you, right? Something that can help you unworry, if I can create a word, something that can help you laugh, maybe when you're sad, even edify you in some way. And because it's kind of just back to reality when you're done, I feel like we file it away, or we can forget about it until we need it again at best. So that's a little bit of what I mean by thankless, which begs the follow-up question, why do it then? And again, the people that are living rent-free in my brain are going to ask that question antagonistically. Why do it then? Just go do something else. Stop complaining. And to be clear, I don't think I'm complaining right now, but also I think the people that would say that are the people that don't understand this. So if you go to YouTube, the irony is not lost on me here. If you go to YouTube and look up Conan O'Brien's channel, Team Coco, about a year ago, they put out a clip from his podcast, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, and it's called Conan Gives John Candy a Tour of Harvard in the 80s. And I thought about just straight up playing the video here, but I think I'm going to tell you anyways. I'm still a copyright coward to some extent. So I'm just going to tell you. You can go watch the video, obviously, but I'm going to tell you the story that he tells about John Candy, who was an idol of his. Apparently, he picked up on him back in the SCTV days and just came to idolize his form of entertainment. I might as well keep using the word. And it somehow worked out that he would come to Harvard while Conan was there. So he, in fact, I don't think even mentions what the actual event was. But in any event, he got John Candy there. And since Conan was kind of in charge of part of it or all of it, he was pretty much in charge of chaperoning John Candy or escorting him around campus or whatever. Again, doesn't go into detail here, because what's important is that on one of those nights where they were kind of just hanging out, John Candy saw fit to ask Conan what he was thinking of doing, like with his life or his career or whatever. And Conan he said, I might like to try comedy. And apparently Candy just kind of looked at him, or looked through him, according to Conan, and said the words, "Kid, you don't try comedy. You do it because you have to." And there's a whole other podcast in there as well. But I think what he's saying that hits me is it's hard. It's hard because it takes work, but it's harder because it takes you. And I'm aware that's the type of phrase that gets you beat up on the playground, right? You do it because you have to. People roll their eyes. I get it. I mean, who am I to post these videos, to try these weird things, to even talk about this stuff that I know I don't fully understand? I get it. It's hard. It's incredibly hard. But I do it because I have to. I found the thing I want to do. And I feel lucky even saying that. I'm checking my privilege again. But I found the thing I want to do. and it's worth it. And it's worth $2, maybe more. And that's why Patreon. It's not because I found the perfect thumbnail and tricky title that will weasel my way into the algorithm and make me internet famous. It's because you agree it's worth it. So thank you, perennial patrons Brandon, Adam, Diana, Kim, Greg, Matt, Mark, and Jonathan Blade. And thank you to the next person on that list. If everything went according to plan, the Patreon has been updated and we are squarely into the next big era for Ryan Runs. And I hope you'll come along for the ride.